Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. If you're new here, consider subscribing. It really helps keep these stories coming. And while you're here, let me know in the comments where you're listening from. Now, sit back, relax, and let's get into the story. War games. That's what we thought it was at first. A surprise drill, a readiness test, some kind of classified operation where we weren't supposed to ask questions. I'd been in the Army for over a decade, and when a superior officer tells you to move, you move. At 0600 hours, my crew and I were on standby at Fort Ridge, a mid-sized military installation on the outskirts of a city I won't name. It was supposed to be a routine day. Maintenance checks, radio drills, and maybe, if we were lucky, some coffee that didn't taste like burnt motor oil. But everything changed when a siren we had never heard before started wailing across the base. Not the usual alert, not the standard lockdown signal. This one was urgent, shrill, and completely foreign to us. "Commander Hayes, get your crew to the M1 immediately." The voice crackled over my radio. It was Captain Reynolds, and he sounded off. No briefing, no explanations. Just orders. I didn't hesitate. My crew, Gonzalez, Pierce, and Walker, had been with me long enough to know when it was time to question things and when it was time to move. Within minutes, we were in the Iron Beast, our M1 Abrams tank, fueled and combat ready. The base was a flurry of movement, soldiers running in every direction, vehicles mobilizing and helicopters roaring overhead. "Sir, what's going on?" Gonzalez asked from his spot as loader, eyes flicking to the commotion outside. I shook my head. Orders are orders. We'll find out soon enough. Then the radio lit up again. "All units, deploy to the city center immediately. Quarantine protocols are in effect. Engage all hostile targets." Quarantine? Hostile targets? This wasn't a drill. I felt a cold weight settle in my gut as we rumbled out of the base, leading a convoy of armored vehicles towards the city. Whatever was happening, it was bad. We just didn't know how bad yet. The city looked like a war zone. Smoke curled from burning buildings. The streets were littered with abandoned cars, and people, civilians, were running in every direction. Some were screaming, others were in shock, frozen in place. I had seen my fair share of combat overseas, but this was different. There were no enemy forces, no gunfire exchanged, just chaos. Our convoy pushed forward down the main avenue, the Iron Beast leading the charge. Over the radio, the chatter was frantic. Other units were reporting violent attacks, civilians turning on each other, entire squads going dark. Then we saw them. At first, I thought it was just a riot, desperate people losing control in a crisis. But then I saw how they moved. Jerky, erratic, like puppets with cut strings. Their faces were pale, eyes wild, mouths open like they were starving. They weren't fighting each other. They were swarming anything that moved. A group of them was tearing into a police barricade, overwhelming officers who had no chance. I watched in horror as one officer emptied his sidearm into an attacker's chest. Center mass, perfect shots, and it didn't stop them. They just kept coming. "Sir," Pierce said from the gunner's seat, voice tense, "are those people?" I wanted to say yes, and I really did, but deep down, I already knew the answer. "Gonzalez, get me on the radio." My voice came out steady, even as my heart pounded. "Command, this is Hammer 1. Be advised, the city is overrun. Hostiles are not responding to standard engagement. Requesting further instructions." Static, then a response. "Hammer 1, confirm, targets are not going down." Affirmative. Headshots might be effective, but body shots aren't stopping them. There was silence on the other end. Then, "All units, adjust engagement strategy. Prioritize elimination of head targets. Defensive perimeters no longer an option. Fall back to Sector Bravo immediately. Sector Bravo was outside the city. We had just been ordered to retreat. I gritted my teeth. We were leaving people behind. But an order was an order. "Turn us around," I said. "We're getting out of here." That was when the first wave hit us. The first one hit us like a rag doll thrown at a wall. It sprinted, yes, sprinted, out of an alleyway and slammed against the Iron Beast's armor, clawing at the metal like it could rip it open with sheer will. Then came another, and another. Within seconds, the streets around us turned into a churning mass of bodies. They poured out of buildings, crawled over cars, tripped and stumbled over each other in a frenzied rush toward our convoy, their faces twisted in hunger, eyes locked onto us with an unnatural focus. "Gunner, light 'em up," I barked. Pierce didn't hesitate. The Iron Beast's .50 caliber machine gun roared to life, cutting through the crowd like a scythe through wheat. Heads snapped back, bodies crumpled, but for every one that dropped, 2 more took its place. Over the radio, I heard panicked voices from the other vehicles. Someone was screaming about being overrun, another was calling for medics, then a gut-wrenching sound, a Humvee flipping over, followed by an explosion. "We have to move," Gonzalez shouted from his post. He was right. Staying put meant getting buried under a mountain of those things. "Driver, push through." Walker gunned it, and the Iron Beast lurched forward. The tank's treads crushed bodies underfoot, the weight of our vehicle grinding them into the pavement. The ones that tried to hold on were thrown off like rag dolls. "Sir, left flank," Pierce yelled. I turned just in time to see one of our Bradleys getting swarmed. Dozens of them climbed onto it, clawing at the hatches, slamming their fists against the metal. A soldier inside fired out of a turret, but it was no use. The creatures dragged him out, and he disappeared into the mass of writhing limbs. I clenched my jaw. We couldn't help them, not now. "Maintain formation. Keep moving toward Sector Bravo." The survivors in the convoy followed, some barely keeping pace, others barely keeping together. The city blurred past us, burning buildings, overturned buses, people waving desperately for help that we couldn't give. And in the rearview camera, I saw them. Thousands of them. Chasing us. The Iron Beast tore through the streets, crushing anything in its path. The others in our convoy, what was left of them, followed as best they could, their engines screaming as they tried to outrun the horde. But the city wasn't letting us go without a fight. Blocked roads, wrecked cars, downed power lines. Every turn, every alley, every intersection was a potential trap. And the creatures were everywhere, pouring out of buildings like a flood, clambering over anything in their way, their hands outstretched like they could already feel us in their grasp. "This isn't working," Gonzalez shouted. "They're cutting us off." He was right. Every path toward Sector Bravo was clogged, either by wreckage or by sheer numbers. If we stopped for even a second, we'd be buried under them. I grabbed the radio. "Command, this is Hammer 1. All escape routes are compromised. Requesting alternative extraction point." Silence. Then a different voice came through. Not one of our usual operators. This one was calm, too calm. "Hammer 1, proceed to Grid Point Charlie, evac in 20 minutes. Do not be late." The transmission cut out, no further instructions. I checked my map. Grid Point Charlie was an old train yard on the outskirts of the city. If Command was sending us there, it meant they were getting desperate. A temporary fallback point. It was better than nothing. I switched to the convoy channel. "All units, change course, head for Grid Point Charlie." We took a sharp turn onto a side street, barely squeezing the Iron Beast between 2 abandoned buses. The Bradleys followed, their turrets swiveling, mowing down anything that got too close. But then I saw it. Up ahead, spanning the entire road, was a wrecked city bus. No way around. No way through. "Pierce," I snapped, loading round below that thing to pieces. The Iron Beast's main gun boomed, shaking the air. The bus exploded in a shower of metal and fire, clearing a path forward. We surged ahead. I checked the rear monitor. The horde wasn't slowing. They weren't stopping. They would chase us to the edge of the earth if they had to. And we weren't out yet. Grid point. Charlie was just a few miles ahead, but every second felt like an eternity. The horde was still behind us, an unrelenting wave of bodies flooding the streets, tearing through obstacles like they weren't even there. The Iron Beast roared through the wreckage, leading the convoy toward the train yard. It was our last shot. We smashed through a rusted chain-link fence and barreled onto the train yard's cracked pavement. The place was a graveyard of old freight cars, abandoned for years. The main tracks stretched into the distance, and at the far end I spotted them. A handful of military transports, engines running, waiting for us. "Evac?" "Pierce, get eyes on those transports," I barked. He adjusted his scope. "I see troops, sir. They're waving us in." For the first time in hours, hope flickered in my chest. Then I saw something else. Movement. Shadows shifting between the freight cars. Not soldiers. Something else. The second we rolled in, they swarmed. They weren't chasing us. They were already here. Dozens of them. Crawling out from between rusted train cars, climbing over crates, spilling out from the station like they'd been waiting for fresh meat. A trap. Walker cursed. "They cut us off." No choice, we had to punch through. "Light 'em up," I ordered. The point, 50 cal, thundered to life again, mowing down anything in our way. The Bradleys behind us did the same, turning the train yard into a storm of lead and fire. But it wasn't enough. They were everywhere, clawing at the tank's sides, piling onto the Bradleys, dragging soldiers out of Humvees. The evac wasn't going to hold. "Hammer 1, get your people aboard now," came a desperate voice from the transports. I glanced at the others. We had to make a call. Stay in the Iron Beast and risk getting surrounded? Or abandon it and run for the transports and hoping we could make it? Neither choice was good. But we didn't have time to debate. The walls were closing in. And if we hesitated, we'd all be dead. The Iron Beast had kept us alive this long, but now it was a coffin on treads. If we stayed inside, we'd be buried. If we ran, we'd be exposed. I made the call. "Everyone, bail, get to the transports." Walker hit the hatch release, and we climbed out onto the tank's hull. The noise, the heat, the smell of burnt fuel and spent rounds. It was overwhelming. The train yard was collapsing into chaos. Soldiers fired wildly as the creatures swarmed them. Some had already been pulled down. A Humvee, tires spinning, slammed into a stack of shipping crates. Its driver yanked through the window before it even stopped moving. And the transports, they were already loading up. "Move!" I yelled. We leaped off the tank and sprinted. Gonzalez was right behind me, his rifle barking as he laid down cover fire. Walker and Pierce ran ahead, pushing toward the last open troop transport. The creatures came from all sides, fast. One lunged at me. I barely dodged, its fingers grazing my sleeve. Another tried to grab Gonzalez, but he slammed his rifle butt into its jaw and kept running. We reached the transport just as the crew chief started yelling, "Last call, we're lifting off." Walker and Pierce jumped in first, helping pull Gonzalez aboard. I was just a few feet away, almost there, when something grabbed my vest. I turned and saw a face inches from mine, filthy, wild-eyed, mouth open, reaching for my throat. I drove my knife into its skull. It went limp, but another was already behind it. Too many, too close. The ramp started rising. "Commander," Pierce shouted, reaching for me. I had 1 second to make a choice. I lunged forward, grabbed the edge of the ramp, and hauled myself up as the transport lifted off the ground. Below us, the horde surged forward, reaching, climbing over each other in a desperate attempt to pull us back down. But it was too late. We were airborne. We had made it. Barely. I collapsed onto the metal floor of the transport, lungs burning, heart hammering like a war drum. We had made it. The aircraft climbed higher, leaving the train yard behind. I forced myself to sit up, gripping the straps hanging from the ceiling. Below, the city sprawled out in ruin, fires raging, streets clogged with abandoned cars, smoke twisting into the sky, and the horde. It was still growing. "Everyone accounted for?" I asked, my voice hoarse. Pierce and Walker gave quick nods. Gonzalez leaned back against the bulkhead, panting. "We lost the rest of the convoy," he muttered. "We're it." I gritted my teeth. 3 vehicles, dozens of men, gone. The crew chief up front was speaking to command, his voice tight. "We've got survivors. Negative on additional extractions. Repeat, negative. The city is lost." I already knew what that meant. They were cutting it off. Sure enough, minutes later, I saw the flash of distant explosions. The military was firebombing the streets behind us, wiping out anything still moving. Too little, too late. Walker stared at the destruction. "What now, sir?" I didn't have an answer. We had followed orders, we had fought, we had survived. But nothing about this felt like victory. The outbreak had already spread too far, too fast. The city was just the beginning. This fight wasn't over. It was only getting started. The aircraft cut through the darkening sky, the city shrinking beneath us. From up here, it looked almost peaceful. A lie. Below, the fires burned, the horde spread. The world we had known was crumbling. The radio crackled to life. "Hammer 1, stand by for new orders." New orders? After all that? I expected them to tell us we were heading to a safe zone, maybe a regroup point. But the voice on the radio didn't say anything about safety. "We're mobilizing. The outbreak has spread beyond initial containment. Military forces are being rerouted for large-scale engagement." I clenched my fists. It was worse than they were letting on. No evac, no retreat. Just war. Pierce met my gaze. He knew. We all knew. The first 12 hours had been bad, but what was coming? It was going to be worse. I glanced down at the city one last time. The Iron Beast was gone. My men were gone. Everything we had done, every fight we had fought, it hadn't been enough. But I was still here, and I wasn't done fighting. "Roger that," I said into the radio. "Give us our target." This wasn't over. It had only just begun. Everything we had done, every fight we had fought, it hadn't been enough. But I was still here, and I wasn't done fighting. "Roger that," I said into the radio. "Give us our target." This wasn't over. It had only just begun. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe. Your support keeps these creepypastas coming. Until next time, stay alert, stay safe, and never ignore the feeling that something is watching.